gentlemen, Fourth and Trollers, welcome back to Fourth and Troll Fantasy, the most entertaining fantasy football podcast on the planet. I'm Noah Selby.
And I'm Wes Selby.
And we're back. And if you're with us on Friday, I said, hey, maybe this Thursday night game is the start of a great week of football. And boy, oh boy, did we get a great week of football. Week 5 was absolute cinema. For fantasy football, for football in general, so many. I feel like every game came down to the wire almost. It was like, oh
yeah,
it was like the witching
multiple
hour
fourth
in
quarter
every
finishes.
Single games. Yeah, it was
awesome.
Crazy. Some big upsets, and we had a good time hanging out, watching it, and having a blast. And we're gonna recap it for you today. Fluke for real. Gonna give you a waiver wire, a little bit of victory lap. Some fun stuff there, and then give you a little bit of a Thursday night football preview as we look forward to week 6. Before we do all of that, follow us on all our socials. Everything is linked down below in that description. Like, subscribe, ring that bell so you never miss any content. If you want to win a signed James Cook jersey, that's going to be down below through our Patreon. Any Patreon member is going to be put into a raffle to win a signed James Cook jersey at the end of the year. It's going to be a blast there. We've got merch, fourthandtrollstore.com. You can check that out there. And then I think we've got some news to talk about, Wes, real quick, just as a little bit of a formality, a little bit of an update here for the Trollers. I am based, my wife and I moved back to my hometown of Tampa, Florida this past summer. If anyone isn't aware or hasn't seen any of the news recently, all good, no stress. We've got a pretty big storm headed our way this week, pretty big hurricane that we're preparing for, and we're looking to ride out. But because of that, we're just going to let you guys know here. We will not have a Friday episode this week of Fourth and Troll. We're figuring out what we're doing here, figuring out what's going on, and where things are going to be at. We're preparing to be without power, and so we're just going to figure all that out and take it one step at a time. So at the very least, it's going to be no Friday episode, unfortunately, but we're going to get you as much stuff as we can today here, and we'll ride out. Make sure you're connected with us on socials. We'll post any updates if we're for any reason going to miss any further episodes or anything like that beyond Friday. Fingers crossed. We're just hoping that's for the best, and gonna do everything that we can and be as safe as possible. But just updating the Trollers just to let you guys know. And who would have thought, man? Moving back to Florida and two big storms pulling through in a span of like a week and a half or something like that. So it's gonna be a fun time.
Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers over to Florida if you do that. And but it's gonna be a blast. So appreciate you guys riding out with us, and we're just gonna take it one step at a time. We'll keep you guys posted on anything going forward. So with all that being said, other news to talk about. The news you're here for is the fantasy football news. So Wes, take it away.
The football news. Yes. Be praying for Noah and all of the Tampa Bay area. Okay. Bye weeks in full swing. It's going to keep going for pretty much the rest of the season until fantasy playoffs. Here we are. Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, Vikings on a bye. Keep that in mind. Plan accordingly. Okay. Did you hear about Romeo Doubs? If you didn't, here's what happened. He was placed on the reserved suspended list by the Green Bay Packers because he skipped 2 practices because he was frustrated that he was not getting enough targets after Christian Watson went down. He was upset that Dontavion Wicks and Jaden Reed were out targeting him and Tucker Kraft. So the Packers said, you're suspended for week 5. We'll see what happens from there. This is breaking news, just my sources. Romeo Doubs is officially now sponsored by Huggies for being a baby. That's breaking news. Fourth and Troll, you heard it here first. Okay, couple more here. Remember, there was a London game, bright and early Sunday. It was terrific. Nice little wetter game. Rodgers threw in 3 interceptions, and in that as well, he apparently suffered a low ankle sprain. Should be fine. should be fine for next week against Buffalo, but keep in mind that Tyrod Taylor is the backup in case you're interested. Also in that same game, on the other side, former teammate Aaron Jones suffered a hip injury, was ruled out during the game. Vikings are going into a bye week, so he should be okay for week 7. We'll find out the severity of the situation later on. Also, running back that's injured from week 5 was Devon Achane, ruled out with a concussion. Dolphins, as I mentioned, are going into a bye week as well, so he should have plenty of time to clear the concussion before their Week 7 game against the Colts, the final game without Tua Tagovailoa, hopefully. And Nico Collins, in trying to help Stephon Diggs' revenge game, suffered a hamstring injury, missed the second half. He's now considered week to week, which, as we all know, usually means that they're out for the next week, so keep that in mind, all you Stephon Diggs owners. Zach Moss suffered an injury scare. Looked like he was going to be out for a long time, but Zach Moss seems to be okay. Just had his ankle twisted up. Should be good to go next week, but we'll see more details from there. And last but not least, word on the street is that Drake May is going to get his first start week 6 against Houston. They've had enough. They were 1-0. Now the Patriots fall to 1-4 after losing to the quarterbackless Miami Dolphins. That's it for the news. Now, let's take some wonderful victory laps from week 5, huh? Some good ones over the year, over the week. Goodness.
Take it away.
Okay, well, first things first, let's talk about the hottest player from week 5. I'm talking about someone that Noah and I are both going to take a victory lap upon. His name is Tank Bigsby. We have talked about him multiple times during this off-season, regular season. Noah, you said in week 1, going into week 2, Tank Bigsby should be on the waiver wire. He was your waiver wire ad. So if you listened to him and you already had him, you've already got him. And if you listened to me last week, I said Tank Bigsby should be the guy you get. We were talking about Trey Sermon as well. We're talking about him in a moment as well. Some other good running backs, other pieces. Tank Bigsby taking a victory lap. We were letting you know in advance. Hopefully that paid off for you. I'm going to take another small victory lap here on a wide receiver. Stop ignoring Allen Lazard. He got another touchdown in London. Man, this guy is doing great, and we're not talking about him. I'm just trying to use it as another plug, another opportunity to say Allen Lazard is doing great. He's top 4 in touchdowns on the season. Only Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Mike Evans have scored more touchdowns. Please stop ignoring Allen Lazard. Take another victory lap on him. Here's another one. The offseason. Here's why you watch us during the offseason. Don't just join us before week 1. Watch us in the offseason. We had an episode that was titled Top Handcuffs to Draft that are not named Blake Corum. We hope you listened because Blake Corum is just now barely doing something. And in that, I mentioned Ty Chandler. And I said, Aaron Jones is good, but he's injury prone. We know this. And if you got Ty Chandler, if Jones is going to miss any time after the bye week, Chandler is going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy, not CJ Ham getting a nice little touchdown. Chandler is going to be the go-to. Another one. Man, we're on a roll with these victory laps. My studs and duds, flawless. Flawless execution from week 5. I said Ramondre Stevenson was a stud. And the word got out that Antonio Gibson was going to start. Oh, and I was nervous. But Gibson did nothing. And Stevenson was running back 4 on the week, 19 points. Come on, listen to us, folks. Fourth and Troll Fantasy is pretty good at this stuff here. Tyler Conklin was my stud. Tight end 11 on the week, 11 targets. Let's keep in mind as well. Keep him in your lineups as well. He's doing great. And then my duds, I'll take half laps on these. These aren't, which is a full lap for each dud altogether because Devon Achane, I said he was a dud. And if you benched him, that worked out altogether because concussion kind of just did not help his stats at all. So that worked. So if you listened, great move. And I said my dud was AJ Barner. Who? Exactly. 4 points. No need to pay attention to him. Okay, Noah, you had a couple of duds, or not duds. You had a couple of victory laps and someone that has been a dud all season. You got to celebrate this one, man.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, and I've mentioned it and talked about it after week 3. Briefly when mentioning Sam Darnold needed to be picked up. Patrick Mahomes is not a fantasy friendly quarterback, like in the slightest. Like for the skill position players, for Travis Kelce, sure. But man, it is not. It is 13.4 points. Not excited, not happy, not thrilled, probably lost you a week. Again, if you're still in your lineup, what are you doing? Get him out of your lineup, trade for somebody, pick up somebody. I don't even know who you can pick up. Pick up Joe Flacco. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. Teammate of Joe Flacco, Trey Sermon was another guy we talked about here. Good spot start, 18.3 fantasy points. It was good to see there. Hopefully, if you're a Jonathan Taylor owner, you spent up in the fab and were able to grab him, and he was an impact for you. And then this is like just an offshoot one I mentioned like after the fact of it, and I was like, just this is why you listen to the full episodes, because I was like, hey, by the way, real quick, Jordan Whittington, if he's out there, pick him up, go for it. And he scored like 16 fantasy points, which is awesome. And I wonder, obviously he's gonna be on a bye week now, so a low rostered guy going into a bye week, you're probably fine to drop him. I don't think you're at risk for like anyone like picking him up in your league, especially when Cooper Kupp is going to be back after the bye week, hopefully. But he could continue to play sort of that Puka Nacua role. So if you don't have to drop him, hold on to him. I'm reconsidering some things when it comes to my waivers. I had initially had him in for one, and then I pulled him out as well. So definitely a good guy there. So watch full episodes. There you go. There's no plug for you.
Nice.
That's it. Waiver wire. Let's jump into it, dude. I got some guys, some fun dudes to mention here. I initially thought, I don't think this is a very strong waiver wire week. It was like, it's tough. There are some players to mention, but it's also like, well, what's the? Yeah, I think a couple of your guys, Wes. It's like, what's the? They're 100% guys to talk about, but what's the likelihood you want to like? Yeah, we'll get to them when you say that anyway. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second. Because they're guys that I had considered, and I'm glad you're going to mention them as well. But two guys I have to talk about here is first one is a pretty big one here. It's Josh Downs. I think he's definitely somebody you got to bring up here. Leads the team in targets since returning to the lineup. Listen, he's a must start with Joe Flacco. He's like a close your eyes and pray flex play with Anthony Richardson. It's hard because it's like you don't necessarily trust Richardson, but maybe there's a chance that Steichen just looks at him as like, dude, we're designing these plays for him. Like, you have to get the ball out to him. Please.
Please.
Side note, for what it's worth, I lost to a guy who scored 170 points this week. So it's not like I would have won had this happen, but Josh Downs had like 7.5 fantasy points after the first drive for the Colts, and he only ended with 16. So guys, come on, what are we doing here? Anyway, but still, Josh Downs 100% needs to be rostered. So if he's not rostered, you have to go get him there. And then this guy here, I think, is actually a guy that has legitimate get into your lineup potential here, and it's Jalen Tolbert, Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. Second or third year, I believe. He's not any. I believe he's second year. He might be third year. Averaging 16.5 fantasy points in games where he plays 75% or more of the snaps. 16.5 points. That's well within the range of being a top 12 wide receiver kind of numbers when you're putting up those kind of numbers in games where you're just involved, where you're a key piece of the offense. And with Brandon Cooks being out and kind of his return being kind of uncertain with this knee infection, whatever it may end up being, we're not sure the magnitude of it. This is a guy that I honestly, I think he should be one of the top waiver ads this week. He is a guy that I believe we should have thought about it more this offseason, because he's being highly praised all offseason by this Dallas Cowboys team, by the regime, by the coaching. And maybe we should have taken it a little more seriously. Obviously, it came on a little slower, but truly, when he is playing 75% or more of the snaps, he's averaging 16.5 fantasy points. Like, and you might go, well, that's probably skewed, right? Because he scored like 20 points, 21 points, sort of. But like, it was like 13.5 and 14.5 points. So like, you're pretty happy, honestly, in that regard when it comes to like a guy who can be a flex play. He's out there. I believe you need to go get him. He is so Josh Downs and Jalen Tolbert there are my two.
Yes.
And we call him out early. So based on the Tank Bigsby projection arc, Jalen Tolbert's going to be like the wide receiver 5 in 5 weeks. So move over,
Exactly.
CD.
And I think that's that's what it is. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb has been replaced with Jalen Tolbert. Yeah, if you're wondering where Tank Bigsby is going to be in this waiver wire segment, he was last episode because we predicted it last episode. So obviously, you should have already gotten him. He should already be in your lineup because you listened to Fourth and Troll and you already knew that he was going to be great. So there's that. I have a couple here. I've got 3 waiver wires, small pieces here. One, if you need a quarterback solution, I think we can take Caleb Williams pretty seriously now. He is a waiver wire ad for me for the QB position. He has had 300 plus yards in 2 of the last 3 weeks, and he is rushing multiple times for a significant amount of yards. I mean, last game was 34 yards. That's pretty legitimate. The most impressive thing to me is while he did in week 3 throw it 52 times in order to get the 300 yards against the Panthers. I know the Panthers aren't all that impressive, but 29 attempts and you throw 304 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's no joke. Maybe there's a reason he was taken first overall. So if you're looking for a quarterback solution, maybe you throw in Caleb Williams. They're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars next week as well. And the way that Joe Flacco just balled out, maybe it's a good spot start as well. Maybe he's your new starting quarterback. He's going on a bye week in week 7. And speaking of bye weeks, I've got 2 players that are going into a bye week, which means you don't have to use your waiver wire priority. You don't have to spend fab because it's probably not going to be taken. But I want you to keep an eye on Ty Chandler, someone we mentioned at the top of the show in our Victory Lap Tuesday segment. Aaron Jones, injury prone. Ty Chandler is a good handcuff. We talked about him in the offseason, and now here he is. CJ Ham is not the one to get. It's Ty Chandler because Ty Chandler is the backup, and he was the backup when Madison was in Minnesota, and he took Madison's job. Ty Chandler is fantastic. If you're looking for some kind of running back replacement, some security, Chandler is great. And now we can start talking about my last waiver wire player, Jalen Wright. All you Devon Achane haters, there you go. Fine. Over 80 yards rushing, had a few less than 10 points, no PPR volume. But if Mostert gets hurt again, or Achane misses time, or Mike McDaniel finally opens his eyes and realizes he has the best running back room in the NFL, aside from the Lions, I would say, maybe. Well, it's up in the air. It's a toss-up. Jalen Wright's going to see some opportunities, and now is a great time to go ahead and stash him before it's too late. There's your waiver wire ads going into week 6, trollers.
Boom. There you go. That was all I meant earlier when I couldn't figure out how to speak. Was that there's a couple guys here that's like they're going on to bye weeks, so you gotta be picky, choosy here with these guys because like for a guy like me who's currently projected to be starting 2 tight ends in my lineup next week. Yes, that position. Those are going to be. While I am a Devon Achane owner, and I would love to handcuff Jalen Wright and stash him there, I'm probably more likely going to lean towards the Jalen Tolbert ad here to maybe get that other little flex piece in there. But that's the beautiful thing about waivers is that it's always subjective to your team. It's based on team need. Obviously, last year, if it was the Puka Nacua or Kyron Williams situation, you go for those guys. But when we're here,
just get them.
If you're, it's always subjective. When you look at your team, figure out what your necessary ads are. So good stuff there. Let's jump into Fluke for real, Wes. Some fun guys, some fun names to talk about because it was a great week. It was a great week. It was unbelievable.
Yes.
So many big
None of my
players
are in this good segment.
I had like leagues where I scored like 145 points. I had leagues where I scored like 80 points. It's like, oh, cool, nice. Yeah. This is fun. Fantasy football is great. But first guy to talk about here is Garrett Wilson. 29 fantasy points. Hey, we got the game. Everyone was excited about it. Well, obviously, he's a first-round pick this year. Really, really big name going into things. Here's my thing and my concern. You look at the fantasy points and you're hyped. Dude, I didn't have the time to do the math on this. I don't know if there is like ever like if anyone's ever calculated the metrics on like fantasy points per target, but this has to be like the lowest output in that metric I've like ever. 29 fantasy points on 22 opportunities. Like 22. He was thrown the football 22 times. And that's what it took for us to get the game we thought would be a more regular occurrence from Garrett Wilson this season. Like 101 yards on 20. I don't know. I was of the belief that Rodgers was going to come in and do good things here. And like this, I think this is a fluke. Like I'm sorry. Like I hate to say it. I think it's a fluke.
So I'm with you. I will say just generally this is for real. Like you can start Garrett Wilson with more confidence in the last few weeks, but I have concerns as well. I have concerns of how many targets Tyler Conklin saw, because he saw 11.
Yeah.
I have concerns that Alan Lazard and Mike Williams are both still seeing red zone targets and opportunities. I'm concerned that the 41-year-old quarterback who has a low ankle sprain is going to be able to throw it over 50 times a game in order to produce this 30-point stat line for Garrett Wilson. So I understand the reason to say this is a fluke, but I think just generally is like, do I sell high? It depends. It depends who the player is you're going to get in return, but
I don't own him anywhere, but I would, truthfully. Like if like I actually really would.
We'll see.
Like, would you rather have Garrett Wilson or Marvin Harrison Jr. rest of the season?
I would rather have Marvin Harrison.
And I wouldn't be like blown away if like that trade came up in the sleeper feed in some of my leagues this week. I'd be like, oh wow, someone got that done. Nice. Like I think you could probably get that done. Like trying to sell on like a low week, high week, that kind of thing. Yeah, good stuff. So we're gonna talk about the Ravens tight end room. And I have absolutely no clue what to do here. And we officially dropped Mark Andrews in the Creators League that we're in. He is off the squad.
Correct.
I know Isaiah Likely scored 16 points. I could still just as easily, I feel like right now, drop him. I'm like, cool. Like I'm like, okay, well, we have Tucker Kraft now, so I'm like, all right, well,
that works out.
Great, awesome, love it. Love 16 points from a tight end, 13 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like it's I hate the Ravens. I hate Todd Monken. This is what a stupid name, Todd Monken. I hate it.
What a stupid name.
I hate
stupid
it so
guy.
much.
This is
all. I just
this
don't even know what to do with any of this.
I'll give Likely the benefit of the doubt because now this is the second time we've seen him put up some numbers, and the stat line is completely unsustainable. But at least he's done it again. So I'll say Likely. I'm leaning toward. I would say could possibly be for real, but Mark Andrews, that's a fluke. You get 5 targets when Lamar Jackson throws it 40 times, and you get what? Not even 10 points. No, you're done. Officially, I'm not re-picking you up. Andrews is staying on the bench, off my team at the most.
Isaiah Likely has an Xavier Worthy stat line. I don't know if I trust that, man. I'm too scared of that. But I'm not. I mean, he won't get dropped. He'll stay on the bench. But like that's anytime you see 3 catches and 2 touchdowns, it's like, oh,
that's a Hunter Henry stat line.
Yeah, that's a oh man, that's a Dontari Poe catching a trick play touchdown from
you line it up Dontari Poe in your flex option.
Yeah. Listen, here's a guy that's
IDP
gone crazy 2 weeks in a row now, and it's DeAndre Swift. 21 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. 2 catches for 47 yards on 2 targets. 20 fantasy points. this is I think the other Swift managers were like right at the edge, and I think they
Mhm.
are thrilled now. And the chatter of Roshan Johnson getting more looks, like maybe is real, but like he scored 2 touchdowns, but uh, this feels more for real than Fluke. I think maybe they just in a new look offense, they just had to get him going. I don't know. Do you feel similarly?
I think this is a fluke. I think this is a fluke. You know why?
I
I
want
saw
it
this
to
last year
be.
with the Eagles.
It's the Panthers, so like
Yeah,
it was against the Panthers. Like
but
it's not a hard team to do that against, but that's gonna be
yeah,
right actually.
I saw DeAndre Swift get top 15 5 weeks in a row with the Eagles last year, and
Uh-huh.
then he was only top 15 three times the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So up until week 6, 5 weeks in a row, and then after that, barely 3 times. Fluke. I know this guy. I saw him in Detroit. I saw him in Philadelphia. This is a fluke. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
All right. Chase Brown, 16.4 fantasy points here. The workload is evening out a bit. The snap percentage was still pretty heavily in Zach Moss's favor, but
Yeah.
Chase Brown actually out carried him, and so it feels weird to say like in a game where they were like in it and like up for like a good portion of it, they weren't just letting Zach Moss run the ball out. But I'm not sure what to do here actually with Chase Brown. I roster him if he's out there. I I don't. This Bengals team is so weird that I just don't know where I'm at with them.
I think it's worth saying it's for real. And I think if you're in a sticky situation with running backs, I think Chase Brown could be the risky play and high reward. So I'm leaning towards for real because we have seen him slowly crack into Zach Moss's opportunities. And even though Zach Moss apparently is going to be fine from that ankle injury, I do think Chase Brown is going to see more in the next game. And I think that will lead into him having a much better timeshare in the backfield. So I'm going to predict this is for real in the future.
Cool. All right, Brandon Ayuk, finally saw him get out there and do what we know he is capable of. The Niners feel so weird, man. I don't really know what's going on with
Yeah.
that team. Um, I, Again, I don't know if I'm willing to say fluke because I know this to be true of the player Brandon Ayuk. However, as I recently just mentioned, this team is so weird. Like, and this team is so strange, and I don't know what's fully going on. We'll find out soon because they play on Thursday night against the Seahawks in a division game. We'll go over those.
That's right.
We'll preview that here in just a little bit. But I think I want to say for real because I know this to be what Brandon Ayuk does. However, if I had him, he'd be in my lineup, and I'm still scared until I see it again.
I need to see it again. Those are the words. I need to see it again. Unfortunately, I have him in one league. It was an auto draft league, so I didn't really have a choice. I didn't draft him intentionally anywhere. I've never started him. Never started him. And after this week, I may need to wait another week. I just need to see it again. 12 targets is great, and to put up 20 points without a touchdown is awesome. But like you said, this team feels a little dysfunctional. They're not doing great. They don't look like they're on their way to the Super Bowl. So something has to change. And I'm not sure if it's Ayuk needs to get more involved or what it is, but I'll lean towards Fluke personally.
Cool. A couple of Giants wide receivers here. Darius Slayton with 26.2 fantasy points. Wan'Dale Robinson with 16 fantasy points. Wan'Dale, I'll say this isn't a fluke. I'm glad he got in the end zone, but he gets targets, dude, and it's even with Malik Neighbors in, he gets targets. He's like the going into week 5, he was like the 5th most targeted player in the NFL. They're not high quality targets. They're like at the line of scrimmage. It's like campy like screenplays and like stuff like that he doesn't do much with after the play. But he's a flex play pretty safely in my eyes. Darius Slayton, however, this is a full benefactor of Malik Neighbors being out. So that's a fluke. But Wan'Dale is for real here. He's a guy that, I mean, he hasn't come up on the waiver wire yet for us, but he's a guy that if he's out there, I'd be surprised if he is at this point. But if he's out there, he needs to pay a little more attention to him.
Agreed.
Rico Dowdle, I believe, is taking over the backfield. I believe he is the guy. Finally, we got here. 19.4 fantasy points, season high, 20 carries, 87 yards, 2 catches for 27 yards and a touchdown here. Both his touchdowns have come on screen passes. So that's the little piece that I'm like, I'm still a little nervous here, but I believe it's for real because he is taken over as the guy in the backfield. You know, it is still a committee, but he is the 1A of the 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E.
I would call that 1B and 2B.
Yeah, he's not even. I can't even call him a 1A. I can't even call him a 1A. Yeah.
Generally, it's like a 1C plus, and it's a 2C plus. You know, that's kind of how the backfield is. My personal thoughts on Rico Dowdle here. I need to see what it looks like when Dak Prescott isn't throwing 3 interceptions, and the passing game looks like ass a tree. You know, say for the final incredible second from Jalen Tolbert. I need to see what the offense looks like when Dak Prescott doesn't look like the worst quarterback in the NFL. So Rico, yes, if you're in a injury situation, bye week situation, you got Rico, roll him out. I think you'll be okay. But as far as rolling him out with a top 15 upside like this, one more week. Give me one more week. I think you can do it. I think this will be for real, but I need to see it one more time.
Yeah. Javonte Williams. Last guy here we'll talk about in the good section, 16 fantasy points. I genuinely hate Javonte Williams like so much, dude. And it's sad because I was so high on Javonte Williams his rookie year, and he got his opportunities when Melvin Gordon went down. We were sky high. Me and the Javonte Williams truthers, we were out here, we were thrilled, we were celebrating.
Yeah.
And then year 2, here we go, breakout, torn ACL, busted, get out of there. And then he just this is really getting to you. He's never returned to form, and I just wanted him to so bad this year. And I also just hate Sean Payton, and I don't like watching the Broncos play football. and this is a fluke. I just hate this backfield. It's so confusing. And whenever Audric Estime returns, I think he's going to get like a real shot at like getting like real carries in this offense. I don't buy it. Also because I just don't know when the Broncos are ever going to be winning like they were again. So I don't know. I could be alone on that, but that's just me.
Bo Nix was top 10 in fantasy on the week. He's wheeling and dealing. They got
Bo Nix also
I think the best defense.
60 yards last week.
Yeah, it was.
Man.
Well, I mean, the one thing about Javonte is
they do
the targets for Javonte. I mean, that's the one thing to point out. But I'm with you. I definitely need to see it probably 2 more times for Javonte. Because Jaleel had a good game as well. Jaleel McLaughlin still looked pretty good. Someone we mentioned in the offseason. So. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't hate Javonte, but I'm with you.
We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Jump into the bad section here. A few guys just to fire through here real quick. Sam Darnold. I guess when you go overseas to play football, you're bad because it happened with Aaron Rodgers too. Not as bad as this, but Sam Darnold only had four fantasy points here. Didn't really need to do a whole lot, to be honest. They had a defensive touchdown. They were running the ball fairly well and fairly efficiently. But this is a fluke. I mean, Darnold's great, and he's had a down game, and he'll come back after the bye week and still be 5-0 and be undefeated, and they'll be ready to keep rolling there. Agree? Thoughts?
Agree.
Nice. Marvin Harrison Jr., Wes, 5.6 points. Where are we at with him?
Down game. It's going to happen with a rookie, especially, even as talented as he is. Don't panic. It's going to be just fine. 7 targets is wonderful. Sometimes Kyler Murray is going to run for a 50-yard touchdown in the first drive of the game, and that's just how that goes. So just be prepared that he won't always win you your week, but you got to lock him in. He's going to be fantastic throughout the season and still absolutely finish top 15, and we still think he'll be top 10.
Yeah. I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. owners got like spoiled and a little bit ruined for like the beginning of the year for a rookie wide receiver, because obviously week 1 was really rough, and then week 2 comes out and he goes nuclear, and it's like 30 fantasy points. And now Marvin Harrison Jr. owners are probably a little disappointed right now because what happened in week 2 hasn't happened 3 weeks in a row now, but he still had like 15 and a half fantasy points and like 17 and a half fantasy points, which this early in your career, and you're 5 games into your NFL career, and you're just still putting up that kind of, production for fantasy football. Yeah. It's
just fine.
They had a game where they were ahead of the 49ers. Like it was like they beat the 49ers. Like it was that kind of game. And they were, doing what they had to do. So good for them. On the opposite side there, Deebo Samuel, only 3 fantasy points. He was great first 2 weeks. Then he got hurt. And he came back. And his first game back, 10.5 points, which isn't what he was doing his first 2 weeks. Also wasn't terrible. You hit the double-digit benchmark there, but definitely not what you were hoping for. And then 3 fantasy points. And I guess the targets is where I have the most pause. Wes, is that also where you're at? Only 3 targets?
Yeah, absolutely. Out-targeted by George Kittle, obviously. Out-targeted by Brandon Ayuk, but out-targeted by Juwan Jennings as well. 4th on Brock Purdy's list of targets for the week. Yeah, I'm concerned.
Maybe Shanahan's gonna go look at the film and go look at the game, the scheme for Thursday night, and go, oh well, we lost the 2 games that were not involving Deebo, so maybe we need to do that more often, and maybe we need to get him more schemed in, because obviously he's extremely talented. We both believe it. But the involvement isn't there, so definitely gonna have to wait and see on that one. I mean, I believe he's a good player, and I believe he's an important piece to this offense. So I think they'll figure out how to get him right. But this is definitely disappointing.
I also think he's more hurt than is disclosed. I think he's still hurt.
That'd be pretty on brand for the 49ers this offseason. God.
John Lynch not reveal injury statuses.
John Lynch suck one, dude. That was just
I think he's still hurt. And I think this is going to be a problem. Potential.
My panic alarm isn't super high after his first single digit performance of the year, but there definitely could be more to this. My panic level is very high for this guy that we're about to talk about here, and it's Breece Hall. I mean, this sucks. Like, we just had a conversation about Bijan Robinson where we said this sucks. And Breece Hall's been worse than Bijan Robinson. Maybe not collectively,
last 2 weeks.
But over the last 2 weeks, yes.
Yeah.
I'm worried. I am. If I'm a Breece Hall manager. I believe that this is going to be a struggle and an issue for a lot of the season going forward. And if I could, I would try and sell while his name still has value. Truthfully, I would sell him. I would sell him for Bijan Robinson. I would. I actually really would. If I could do a 1-for-1 swap, if the Bijan manager just was like wanted to just swap out there, I feel better having Bijan Robinson on my fantasy team rest of season than I do Breece Hall. Even with the struggles we've seen from Bijan, I still feel better about Bijan than I do Breece. Because I love Tyler Algier, but Braylon Allen is really good. And this is
He is
a
good.
legitimate concern for me.
I'm not too worried, to be honest. I'm not panicking because I know when the stretch ends. I know when this skid ends. And if you can make it to week 10 for Breece Hall, then you will have that top 10 running back. And I know that's a lot to ask for right now. We're just going into week 6 currently.
That's 5 more weeks.
Right. So that is a case for me to say buy low on Breece Hall because Denver and Minnesota are very good defenses. So I can understand that they have down games. Any offensive player has a down game against those two teams. I understand. Having 3 points and 6 points in full PPR is really bad. So I understand we're in this conversation now. But he's got Buffalo next, which should be a bounce back. And then he's got Pittsburgh, which should be another bad game. And then New England, and then Houston. We'll see what happens. And then after that, man, once you're in the playoffs with Breece Hall and you need to win to get in, he's got a wonderful schedule. I'll just rattle it off real quick. But it's the Cardinals, and then the Colts, and then a bye week. Then it's Seattle, and then it's Miami, Jacksonville, Rams, and Buffalo to close out the season. Once we get through week 9, Breece Hall will be just fine. But altogether, sure, I can say for real for the next couple of weeks, but I'm not panicking. I say you can buy low, and I still see him as a top 10 potential. Braylon Allen is great, but I'm not too worried.
Yeah, the Denver and Minnesota are really good defenses. I just don't know if I need to win, I don't know if I have until week 10 to then be like, okay, now I'm gonna pop off. I like if I need to if you're a Breece manager and you're like and you're winless or you're 1-4 or even 2-3. I mean, it's hard if you have more options and you could still sell him. I don't know. I think I love the guy. He was my number 2 running back this year, but I worry about the feature ability anymore, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. I'm a little worried. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Denver's a really good defense. Minnesota's a really good defense. I wish I don't know. We'll see.
He's still in full PPR top 15 running back. He's 13th after 5 weeks. And that's still better than Jahmyr Gibbs right now. Even after that game and even after the week against Denver. He's still, and I know Jahmyr Gibbs just had a bye week, so it doesn't really count.
Jahmyr Gibbs has
But he has still outperformed Bijan Robinson to this point. Bijan is still barely in the top 20. So I don't know who wins. Maybe if you want more of a consistent floor in your Breece Hall owner, I understand if you want to make that move. But I think in the end, Breece Hall will be fine. This is just a bad stretch because they're not winning. Aaron Rodgers is struggling, and they played some tough defenses, but he'll get going. I got some faith. All
right. Let's jump into a Thursday Night Football preview here. Must starts, risky starts, and don't starts here. Seahawks taking on the 49ers out in the Bay. Gonna have, hopefully, another good Thursday Night Football game. Did you hear me, Bezos?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, another good Thursday Night Football game. Should be a fun one, a divisional matchup. And let's jump into it. Wes, we got must starts, risky starts, and don't starts. Guys that need to be in that lineup, guys that we're maybe a little hesitant on, and guys that we are saying get them on your bench. Take it away with the must starts.
Yeah, there are only a handful of players, I think, out of both these very talented teams that you must start, that are an absolute lock. They have a lot of great players that can win you a game, but who is the set it and forget it player of the season so far? Now that he's healthy, I'll just keep saying that it's Kenneth Walker III. And you may be wondering, well, why would you even mention his name? He had another 19-point game. Well, in case anyone's actually analyzing the stats, he only had 5 rushes. What? He had 8 targets and 7 receptions for 57 receiving yards. That's where the points came from. So if you had any kind of concern trying to analyze, was it a fluky game against the Lions and then he's not at full strength, whatever it is, no, he'll be just fine. Keep him, set it, forget it. He's one of the top running backs in fantasy, top running backs of the season altogether. Kenneth Walker, you must start him.
Yeah, absolutely. On the flip side of that, the other running back here, Jordan Mason, is my must start here for Thursday night. And just you might be a little worried after a game where he should have gone absolutely nuclear against the Arizona Cardinals. Similarly, with last week with Mike Evans, should have had a better week, but he didn't. And I said he's a must start. You got to keep him in there. Same thing here with Jordan Mason. Still the guy. Tyrone Tracy Jr. just torched Seattle on the ground. Was the only, I believe he was the only 100-yard rusher this week in the NFL. I believe it's a big bounce back game in store for Jordan Mason. And if you're, you're probably not, but if you're bouncing around with maybe not getting him, in that lineup, I definitely think he is a guy you got to have in there. So he is my must start.
He is one of 4. Tyrone Tracy Jr. was one of 4. Kareem Hunt managed to squeeze in 102 on Monday night.
He just got in there. Dude, he looked so good.
Yeah.
Kareem
vintage.
looked so vintage. Like Kareem, it's not like obviously like the explosiveness might not have been there. And I wanted to get an opportunity to talk about this if we could. And I'm just gonna squeeze it in right here.
Yeah, go for it.
Just brief. He looked so good. He is the Pacheco role. I'm not worried.
27 carries.
Yeah, dude. He looked so good, and he's going to be so involved. And I'm not kidding. Amazing. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I spent disgusting fab on Adam Thielen earlier in the year in a desperate moment, and it paid off. I'm not going to spend fab because he's on a bye week, but I think this is disgusting. I think Juju might have flex value. I think he might have flex value. Crazy. It's disgusting. I need to look at the snap counts.
Let's just focus on Thursday night. You're going bananas. You can't even handle this. Risky starts. Seahawks and 49ers. Those are the teams we're talking about, not the Chiefs. Seahawks, 49ers. You know who risky starts are? Watch this. All 49ers wide receivers are risky starts. All 3 of the starters. They're risky. And I don't know if I stole part of your thunder for who you're going to talk about. You let me know. But I got all 3 as a risky start. Juwan Jennings, insane in week 3. 3 touchdowns. Fantastic. Awesome. Where has he been since then? He had a lot of targets, actually, in week 4. It's pretty good. 4 targets last week. 1 catch. Yeah. Not that hot. That's a risk. And if you were just depending on him, I don't know if he's going to be anybody until Deebo Samuel inevitably gets hurt, or until Brandon Ayuk is traded, or Kittle is hurt again, or whatever it is. But speaking of which, Brandon Ayuk, okay, finally had a good game. Are you sure you're going to roll him out? Maybe. Might be worth it. It may not. We don't know. It's the first good game. And then Deebo Samuel, since being hurt, 10 points and then 3 points. I mean, this is not good. And I really do believe he's still hurt. I think there's something aggravating him in that calf strain still. And I'm concerned about all 3 of these 49ers pass catchers, all wide receivers. You can roll out George Kittle, but the wide receivers, they're all risky starts.
Very fair. Yeah, that's very fair, I believe. My risky start here for this Thursday night football game is Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I hate to say it, I think he's a little boom bust. Like I was trying to think about who I could equate the production to, and I was like, who might it be? Who might it be? And I was like, damn it, is he the new Tyler Lockett? Like I was like, is he the new guy that's like he's so good when he's so good? But and you have to keep him in the lineup, and you just know that. Like he's gonna have great games, but sometimes they might suck. Like sometimes he's gonna get 4 targets in a game. Sometimes he's gonna get 12 targets in a game. Like it's so tough. So you'd like to think that in a divisional game where hopefully it's going to be high scoring, hopefully it's going to be a close one, that he will be involved. He should be. He is so talented and he's so good. They need to make sure he's getting the football. It's a risk, and I lean more towards liking the play, especially with some good wide receivers on bye weeks. But you never know. You never know with JSN at this point. I don't have a firm grasp on, is it going to be a great week or is it not? But I feel better than I do feel worse. So he's my risky start this week.
I love him. And
Me
after
too,
I got
dude.
burned with that 5-point game in week 3, and after a really weak 3-target performance in week 1, I get it. He's a risk. He's always a risk for the entire season. When it pays off, it's fantastic. Here's who is not paying off at all this season, except for one game. My don't start. Do not start. And I really had to think, who for sure should we not start? Because as I feel like there are only a handful of players that are set to forget it from these two teams, and a lot of risky starts, a lot of players. And I even thought about Jackson Smith and Jigba. But the only player that I would say confidently don't start is Brock Purdy. Don't start Brock Purdy. He is not as good as we think he is in fantasy. Is he a franchise quarterback, all that stuff? Yeah, I see it. But back-to-back NFC championships, but in fantasy, he has only scored over 17 points once. And that's in 6-point passing touchdown, by the way. He has only thrown multiple passing touchdowns once. And that one good game was the same game. Over 17 points, the same game he threw multiple touchdowns. That's the Juwan Jennings game. How many times is he going to do that? I don't think very many. He has thrown as many games with multiple interceptions as he has with multiple touchdowns. And don't get fooled by his legs. They're not producing into a ton of yards. I mean, he's fine. He's mobile, but he's not a top 10 quarterback. He's not the guy you're going to start your week with. I know the Seahawks let Jared Goff throw for whatever they want, and Daniel Jones looked impressive, but I'm not going to say that Brock Purdy is the guy you must start. I don't think he's a risky start. I think you should not start Brock Purdy.
Do you mind just messaging that to our league mate who has him, who just said he didn't want to trade for Kyler Murray from me because he has Brock Purdy and he can just start him over Patrick Mahomes? That'd be awesome.
Who? Which guy? Who is this?
Patrick, dude. He's like, I was like,
come on.
I was like, Mahomes isn't doing too hot, huh? And he was like, yeah, I got
Are
Purdy.
you serious?
And I was like, okay, enjoy.
Mahomes and Purdy are terrible. Hold on. I mean, let me just take 1 second. You want to know? I mean, I'm not going to message him or anything, but like, you want to look at where Brock Purdy is right now? He's 13th. He's 13th, and then
that's really riding based off of the one.
That's the one. That's the Juwan Jennings games.
Yeah.
And Patrick Mahomes is barely top 25. You need better quarterbacks, Patrick. Okay, trade with Noah, make a deal happen, and don't start Brock Purdy. Get a different quarterback.
Sweet.
Anyway, who's your don't start?
My don't start is it's Juwan Jennings. I just think it's too. I think we're too far removed from the big game where I haven't seen enough since then to be, and because the start of the year was encouraging with him, and obviously he has a massive game when without Debo, but with everyone kind of back, with maybe Ayuk is also back in a groove here as far as being a top target getter and target earner in the offense from Brock. I just have it's too much to start. And this is the thing with Thursday Night Football. It's like, you're starting your week with these guys. like, don't get behind the pace. Like, don't let the game get away from you too much. So it may, you're saying it's a risk just for all of them. And I honestly agree. And I just think the biggest risk comes with Jawan Jennings. And so for that reason, he's my don't start. But that's it. Let's get into it. Listen, we will catch you guys next week. Hopefully it's this time next week. We will be back with you guys again. Just not gonna have an episode going out Friday. So we're dealing with some stuff over here in Florida. But let us know what you think about the waiver wire. Let us know who you're picking up. And obviously make sure you follow us on all our socials. We're gonna be definitely getting things out there. And make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell, getting content out for you guys this week as well. So gonna be a blast. No doubt about it. Okay, it's gonna be a fun week. Make sure you're sticking around with us, and we're always gonna get some stuff out there for you. If you want a chance to win a signed James Cook jersey in our Discord, or not in our Discord, but in our Patreon, where you can also access our Discord and our weekly rankings, we will be out there with you there as well. All of that is gonna be linked in the description below, and we will catch you guys next time. My name is Noah Selby,
and I'm Wes Selby.
And this has been 4th and Troll Fantasy.
4th and Troll Fantasy is a production of FQ Media and Selby Artistic Workshop.